All right, so now that we have our workouts, let's take a moment to discuss a few useful items that you might consider adding to your gym bag. First up, we have lifting straps. So if you're not familiar with this particular piece of equipment, it is a basic cloth or leather strap, and you use them to effectively tie your hands to a heavy barbell or dumbbell. The point of these is that they remove grip strength as a limiting factor for particular exercises where your hands are likely to get tired first. So something like a Romanian deadlift, for example. Now, with these, there's room for personal preference. I tend to prefer the cloth version over the leather version. I think simpler is better. And as a bonus, the cloth ones happen to be a little cheaper in addition to being more comfortable and lasting longer, at least in my experience. Now, fair warning, if you've never used straps before, they can take a little bit of getting used to, but fear not, because we're going to have an entirely separate video just about how to get used to using lifting straps. Next on our list of useful gear, we have weightlifting shoes. You'll often hear them called Ollie shoes or lifters, and they all mean the same thing. The defining features of an Olympic weightlifting shoe are a stiff, solid sole and an elevated heel. Now, it's the heel that really is useful for our purposes, and what that elevated heel does is it gives you the illusion, we can say, or I suppose the feel of having more mobile ankles. Now, what that does is it allows you to stay more upright and to get proper depth with standard squatting movements. Now, for just about everybody, ankle mobility is going to be a limiting factor when it comes to getting maximally deep in your squat. Some people more than others, of course. But by pitching up your heels, what you do is you remove or at least lessen how much any lack of ankle mobility is going to limit the depth and the quality of a squatting movement. They're very, very helpful. I wear them for just about any time I'm doing kind of a standard squatting movement. Now, a pair of lifters is likely to set you back somewhere between $100 and $200, so they're not exactly cheap. But the good news is that they're likely to last you a very long time, because you're really only going to wear them for a couple hours a week at most. So they don't get very much wear and tear. This is my pair here. I've had them for a little over a year, and they still feel like they just came out of the box. My previous pair lasted me a very long time, maybe 5 or 6 years. So with any shoe, of course, there are different brands and they have different feels. So I would strongly recommend, before you get a pair, doing a little bit of homework. See which ones fit wide feet, longer feet, read some reviews. But as long as the shoe fits well and it has this elevated heel, that's going to serve our purposes just fine. One more useful piece of equipment to have access to is a belt with a chain like this one. Now, these are not necessary for everybody, but for some folks, if you're at a point where it's useful to add weight to body weight exercises like dips or pull-ups, a belt with a chain is the most comfortable and easiest way to do that. You can get by for a while kind of taking a dumbbell and crossing it between your ankles, but after a while that's going to get pretty tiresome, so having access to a belt so you can hang the weight around your waist is much easier. Now, a lot of gyms have these readily available for their members, so you might not need to actually have your own if your gym provides them for you. If so, great. I personally like having my own. I just don't have to look around for it every time, and I know that it's always going to be ready for me. All right, next up, here's an easy one, a shaker bottle. So this is just a simple plastic bottle. It usually has a little device inside that helps to break up and dissolve your workout supplements. They're useful to have on hand. You might even have one. You might have gotten one when you joined your gym. I personally like to have a handful of them around so I don't have to wash them every time I go to the gym. It's up to you. And speaking of supplements, here's one of my favorites. It's called BSL Complete Essentials. It's an amino acid supplement that you mix with water and drink before and during your workout. Now, without going down too deep of a rabbit hole, amino acids are the building blocks of proteins, and your body has an available pool of aminos that it pulls from when doing work. Making sure that you have an ample supply is important because it makes sure that your body doesn't catabolize or break down your existing muscle tissue to use as fuel while you're working out. You might have heard of or even used a product called BCAAs, which stands for branched chain amino acids. They're similar and they're very popular for a reason. BCAAs are useful because they sort of help to flip the switch, so to speak, to kind of get your body used to improving, to gaining. And very, very useful, very popular. Now, the problem with branched chain amino acids is that they don't provide the necessary substrates to follow through on all of those improvements. So it sort of ends with the switch flipping. BSL is a complete amino essential product, so not only does it help to flip that switch, but it also provides the building blocks to follow through on all those necessary processes. That's why I prefer a complete amino product over exclusively branched chain amino acids. So with this one, 2 to 3 scoops of water, in water depending on how big you are, and just drink it over the course of your workout. Now we also have this protein powder. Actually, a post-workout recovery shake is probably a more accurate description of what this is. Protein powders are everywhere, so if you already have a brand that you like, then excellent. You can stick with it for sure. I do like to be careful. Off-the-shelf brands often have some not great ingredients and some funky additives, and they can be way marked up in price. So personally, I really like this brand, True Nutrition, because it lets you mix your own products from a pretty robust selection of ingredients. It's also nice because it's an online company. They don't mess around with marketing or fancy packaging or any of that. So all things considered, it's pretty darn cheap for some really nice quality stuff. Making your own mix, which is one of the benefits of this company, is great, but if you don't know what you're doing, I'll be happy to try and take some of the guesswork out of it for you. I personally use a 2-to-1 ratio of carbs to protein for after a workout. Post-workout is a great time to get some carbs in, so I usually do about 30 grams of protein and 60 grams of carbs. I'll leave a link for that particular blend right here. Now, if you're looking to add muscle and or strength, then this is the ratio I'd recommend. If you're looking to lose weight, you might consider cutting back on the carbs a little bit, maybe a 1-to-1 ratio, and I'll provide a link for that one as well. There are also a bunch of flavors that you can pick from with this particular company. Obviously up to you which one you prefer, but for what it's worth, I think the light flavor setting is plenty. All right, well that's it for now. Hopefully this has been helpful. Hopefully you have some ideas as to some tools you might consider adding to your gym bag. Again, none of this stuff is mandatory, but it will help you to get the most out of your workouts, so I hope you'll consider it because that's why we're here, right? To get the most out of our training sessions.